So today, ladies and gentlemen out there in Happy Monkey world, Happy Monkey family, we have a very, very special treat for you guys. It's very rare that we get both, but today we have people that are not only monumental in the culture, but also in the corporate, and very few people in this industry can straddle both lines. And these two gentlemen have done it to the best of anybody that I know, and while still keeping their morals, their principles, and their values intact. Seems impossible, but they have done it. My brothers from another mother, Andrew and Steve DeAngelo, thank you guys for joining me in Happy Hour, Happy Monkey Happy Hour with Vlad.
Thank you so much for having us, Vlad. You and the whole Happy Monkey crew and the whole Happy Monkey community, some of our most favorite parts of the community. So it's good to connect with you in this time. And I hope that everybody out there in the range of our voice is safe and that you're getting through this thing in a good way.
Yeah, all love to the New York family right now, Vlad, from California. I know that it's been really tough there, and you know, I've seen the cannabis community through Happy Monkey really rally together and keep everybody connected and the positivity flowing. So it's great to be with everybody today.
Definitely, guys. And I think that like we were talking earlier, Steve, is one of the silver linings to all of this, that a small industry like us during these bad, horrible times have been able to show our humanity, our unity, our empathy for this situation, and to take it, and for us to be from coast to coast and global in the same tribe, still, you know, promoting positivity, still trying to do whatever we can for the people that are hurting out there. I think it says a lot about the difference between us and other industries and people that really care, you know?
I've really been heartened by the response of the industry and the community in a lot of different ways, right? We've had cannabis manufacturing companies turning their lines over and converting their hemp clothing lines into face mask lines, or their cannabis infused product lines into hand sanitizer lines, and then distributing those protective equipment for free to at-risk folks. The industry here in California and other legal states where we've been declared essential has just done a spectacular job at figuring out how to keep the supply chain running, how to make sure that people have access to the cannabis products that they depend on, and how to do that really safely. So like if you come into Harborside now, it's a totally different experience than it's ever been before. Like we've got a lot of, you know, you walk up to the counter and there's hand sanitizer and there's sneeze guards and there's self-bagging and there's spaces marked out on the floor for social distancing. So we're really taking that obligation pretty seriously, and we're keeping the cannabis flowing in a good way. And then, of course, there's you know, the work that's been done for our parts of our community that are still behind bars, which is a very dire situation. But again, the cannabis community has been rising up and doing its part to try and fix it.
Yeah, and I thought 420 was really meaningful in a lot of ways along the lines that we've been discussing, in terms of the community really stepping up and not just celebrating the sort of intoxication effects, which we want to celebrate at 420, but we were also doing meaningful work, raising money for first responders, raising money for protecting cannabis workers, and raising money to get folks out of prison that are facing the ultimate crisis of not only being locked up unfairly, but now having an invisible virus tearing through the petri dish of a prison. It's really hard for us to imagine how stressful and traumatic that must be.
But I'm very proud, like I said, of the cannabis community, because I'm gonna quote one of my favorite writers and philosophers. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, Joseph Campbell, passed away, but great writer. So one time he was in an interview, right, guys, and they asked him, what do you say to people that say, well, how do I make a difference? So many bad things in the world, viruses, war, nature, evil, etc., etc. And he said, well, I'll have to take you back to the Native American days. What they said was, the world has always been a wasteland from its conception and always will be. Things are born, they die, there's destruction. The only power we have is for us to be whatever we wish the world was. And I feel like a lot of people like us here and a lot of other people in the industry have stepped up during these times of crisis. And, we don't have a magic ball. We can't change it all, but I think we have been whatever, we have taken action in the same way we wish the rest of the world will. And I think that's the only power we have. And I think we've done that to a very high capacity.
Yeah, we have to be the change that we want to see. That's how it will happen. There's a lot of political ideologies and even religious ideologies that put forth the idea that the ends justify the means, that one day we're going to get to whatever, the workers' paradise or the religious paradise or whatever paradise, right? And so in the meantime, we can do whatever is necessary to get there. And what I've learned is you don't usually get to that paradise. And so each walk, each step that you take on the path of the direction you're going on is really, really important. Like you said, it's what we can control now. So the manner in which we conduct ourselves and the choices that we make in that regard are the ends. The means are the ends.
Yeah, it's cooperation, right? Cannabis people know that. No cooperation, especially in times of crisis. Well, those of us who've been doing this a longer time may know that even more acutely, because we had to survive prohibition in a more intense way than perhaps others do now. Although there's still plenty of prohibition for us to reverse in the world. But cooperation, right? That's how we're going to get out of this whole situation. I'm heartened to see countries like New Zealand and Australia that have leaders that are ideologically totally opposed to each other, cooperating and listening to science and doing the right thing and lowering suffering and death. And it's, you're starting to see outside of the cannabis community some great stories of cooperation. So it's what we have to do right now.
I want to talk about, I'm so interested to hear what you guys did. We try to play our small part. This 420, we were honored to be chosen by, David Tran and Chronic Relief for Feeding America, and we participated in that. And that felt really good for us to use our platform for something positive like that, to feed Americans during these hard times that don't have access. And I can only imagine how much philanthropy you guys did. Tell us a little bit about how was that for this month for 420. I know you guys are like one of the biggest philanthropists in the cannabis industry, so I'm interested to know, can't keep up to how many things you guys have done.
Oh, I wish we could be big philanthropists, because that would mean that we had big bank accounts.
Yeah.
And what we are is really determined organizers. And for us, it's the idea that there would be a legal cannabis industry and our sisters and brothers who were convicted of cannabis, quote unquote, crimes remain in prison is just unacceptable. It was unacceptable before the virus. And now with the virus sweeping through the prison system, there are 100 prisoners who are dead from coronavirus in the federal system alone right now. Cook County Jail in Illinois is the #1 highest concentration of cases anywhere in the world. So what used to be just a matter of simple restorative justice, right, getting people out of prison who shouldn't be in there, has become a matter of life and death, and that's what we've been focused on. And on 420, the cannabis community just came through for us in the most beautiful way. I think there were a dozen different online events that either partially or entirely collected funds for Last Prisoner Project. We had a great time. Beto O'Rourke appeared on the Willie Nelson Luck reunion, which was dedicated to Last Prisoner Project and endorsed the Last Prisoner Project.
Speaking of that, guys, I got some memorabilia here.
All right.
For my fundraiser we did together at Happy Munkey.
Yeah.
That's right. And one of the very first fundraisers for Last Prisoner Project. I think you guys did the second fundraiser ever for Last Prisoner Project. And you know, what a great night that was. You know, we're really treasuring all of those times now. And, you know, Maya Angelou, the great poet, said that they might not remember what you said, but they'll remember how they made you feel. And that's how Happy Munkey is for me. You know, I don't remember every single detail of everything that happens on every night, although I remember some of it. I remember being up there on that rooftop on my birthday party and how beautiful that was, right? But what I remember is the way it made me feel, and the love and togetherness that of those times that we spent together, and the power that resides in that connection and that love and that togetherness. And so I'm really happy that we had the opportunity to do that when we could, and so looking forward to doing it again.
Definitely. And even that, guys, like, you know, remember I was saying earlier, like, you know, so many people, you know, feel inadequate before this, like, because of superficial things, because of financial reasons, because of status. And now, like I was saying earlier, those things don't matter. The only thing that matters is if you have a roof over your head, if your refrigerator's full, if your family, your friends, and those things that we used to take for granted, like you just mentioned, Steve, us gathering, sharing love, sharing memories together, other things that really matter that we take for granted and we don't focus on. And now you really, you know, appreciate them more than ever.
And we have this opportunity, the whole human species right now, to reflect on what got us to the place that we were and what the world looked like. And I think that that there are a lot of things that we wanted to change, and some of those things have become even clearer during this period of time. So I think it's an opportunity for us to do a reset and come out of the gate on the other side of this thing with some clear intentions and some real determination to reprioritize, right? You know, one of the reasons that we got into this mess is a lack of reverence. We have had a lack of reverence for the web of life that has allowed us to think of the dead bodies of other living creatures as acceptable food sources. We've had a lack of reverence for the health of the planet that's allowed us to value this like ever increasing economic growth, right? What happens when you have economic growth around the world of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12% per year, going on and on and on? What it means is that the resources of this planet get chewed up at an ever increasing rate. It means that more trees get cut down. It means that more oil gets pumped. It means that the air gets dirtier. And that's a trade-off that we as a species have been willing to make, a lack of reverence for the life of the planet. The lack of reverence for the dignity of work that has allowed us to value shrewdness and cleverness and an ability to manipulate figures on a piece of paper more than the people who come to take away our garbage or who clean up our hospitals, who do things that we now know are absolutely critical and essential to our well-being. So hopefully we come out of this with an increased sense of reverence for all of those things. There's a lot of reason for hope, I think, coming out on the other side.
Yeah, it's about getting as many people woke in this moment as possible. We're already there, right? Probably a lot of people listening to this are already there. We've been there for a while. We've been like storming the gates saying, come with us, Exactly. Let's change society. Let's change the world. We can make it better. It's okay to have less individually so that the collective can be better off, and it feels good, it feels right, and we can build something that makes our spirits more harmonious with our intention and destiny, why the Creator put us here in the first place. So I think this moment will allow some of that waking up to happen even more, as people suffer. Suffering, the mistakes we make and the suffering we go through is oftentimes our best teacher. It's certainly been in my life. The mistakes I made, the things that haven't gone so right have taught me a lot. And I think my brother's right. Reverence is one of those lessons that we're going to learn right now. And I think there's probably a lot of other ones too. Appreciation and reverence certainly are the big ones that come to mind right now as we talk.
So can we talk about the University of Alberta study?
First, before you continue, Steve, I'm going to do an appreciation toast right now. Too many people in this world and in this industry and in society as a whole love to give people their flowers and their accolades after they're gone. I want to say on record here that you guys are an inspiration to me, have opened the doors for so many people, done so many things. So Happy Monkey with Happy Hour with Vlad is the cannabis version. You drink at the bar. Cheers to you guys and everything you've done.
Thank you so much, brother. Spark that up, that good smoke. Bring it down. Know that our love and our prayers are coming there in that smoke as we blow it up into the air and send it out into the universe, right? All of us together, all around the world. We may be in our own little spots here, but we are united by one plant. And that plant gives us the same set of experiences, even if we're physically distanced from each other. And she teaches us the same lessons. And we, the global cannabis tribe, hundreds of millions of us strong, are taking those lessons and we're building them into a new value system. And we will take that new value system and our love and the power that our love gives us out into the world, and we will change this world on the other side of this crisis. It is happening. I see it. The University of Alberta, right? This is really exciting me.
So break it down to me. I haven't got this news. I haven't been keeping up as much lately.
Okay, so it turns out that for at least 10 years that I can find out, there are researchers who have been studying the antiviral properties of cannabis, because it appears that there are like certain receptors that viruses come in through, and cannabis can take up the space in those receptors and block the virus's doors, basically. And so there's been a body of research that's been going on for several years around that. And there's a team at the University of Alberta that has just released a study looking at the possible application of cannabis to the COVID virus. And what they found in their initial preliminary test tube studies is very promising. Now, it's not a cure for COVID. It's nowhere close to that yet, but it is an indication of what can happen if cannabis research is allowed to blossom, right? So in a sane world, the antiviral properties of cannabis for the last 10 years would have been the subject of intensive research. And we might actually have an answer for COVID right now. But what we know is that cannabis is effective for almost every human medical condition. It's effective for almost every human medical condition because the basic way that it works is to restore our body's natural balance. I have yet to find any human medical condition that cannabis doesn't play that function for. And I think the same is probably true of COVID as well. So hopefully one of the things that comes out of this is that that researchers who thus far have been restricted to doing test tube studies are actually allowed to do human clinical studies, and we're allowed to explore these potentially very potent antiviral properties of cannabis moving into the future. I don't want to be like, the crazy guy who's saying that cannabis is going to cure everything, but the reality of it is that it has so far. Just about everything that we've looked at, cannabis has been efficacious for. So another sign of hope coming over the horizon, another way that this plant potentially can help us.
Thank you for sharing that great news. I didn't know that, and I'm happy about that, because we all have known for a long time, us that are really in it that deep, that the endocannabinoid system plays a role in everything in our body and our composure. So it's just like you said, they haven't allowed them to study it at the highest level, but we know that it's gonna open Pandora's box once they do, because we know by experience and by us ourselves being medicating ourselves what difference it's made in our lives. So imagine when they're able to really dissect all the amazing benefits that it has for the body.
That work's underway now, right? I mean, there's this amazing stuff that's going on in Israel these days. There's a researcher named Dede Meiri who is taking a deep dive into cancer and cannabis and really figuring out how cannabis does actually fight cancer, the particular properties within the plant, the exact right combinations of terpenes and cannabinoids that are going to be most effective for various different types of cancer. And, we've known about the cancer fighting properties of cannabis, excuse me, since at least 1973, when the National Institute on Drug Abuse, a US government institution, did their first study on cannabis and cancer. They were trying to prove that cannabis causes cancer, and what they proved was that cannabis fights cancer.
Backfired.
So they buried it.
Yeah.
Then they ran another study, hoping that if they tried it with a different kind of cancer and manipulated the study, they get better results. Same results, so they buried it. And then they run a study on lung cancer, and they look at 3 different types of people: tobacco smokers, cannabis smokers, and people who smoke nothing at all. And the lowest incidence of cancer was in the people who smoked cannabis. The second lowest incidence was in people who smoked nothing at all. And of course, the poor tobacco smokers were getting lots of cancer. So again, the US government buried that information, but you can only bury the truth for so long. You can only bury the truth for so long. And human beings, we've known about this plant for thousands and thousands of years. And so now that circle is being closed by people like Dede Meiri. And 10, 20, 30 years from now, cannabis is going to be recognized as what it is, as the most important medical breakthrough of all time.
Yeah, and when our people were dying from HIV and AIDS is when all of this hit us like a brick house, in terms of not just what it was doing for our community, helping keep people alive and making sure that they don't waste away, but we realized that we could create empathy in the minds of mainstream by telling the stories of those folks, and that's something that has worked to open up hearts and minds of mainstream people to cannabis. And we've seen it with children with epilepsy, and maybe we'll see it now with Corona too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. The history, right? The history of the modern cannabis movement. One of the most critical moments was during the AIDS crisis in San Francisco, and some of the real heroes of our movement, people like Dennis Perone, came out of the gay community, and they noticed that people who were consuming cannabis lived longer and had a better quality of life, people with AIDS, than people who were not consuming cannabis. And their instinctive and immediate reaction was just to start distributing cannabis. That's how we got Brownie Mary making up brownies with cannabis in them and taking them to the AIDS ward and feeding them to patients on the AIDS ward and the General Hospital in San Francisco. Brownie Mary got busted 3 times doing that. 3 times doing that good work. And who knows, maybe we will see the same thing with COVID. I know that within my circles, I have yet to hear of anybody who's other than Charlotte Figi, who was seriously compromised I haven't heard of people within the cannabis community coming down with serious coronavirus or much coronavirus at all. And it'd be interesting to, to hear from folks. I don't know if that's just because I'm very, very lucky, but maybe there is something going on, and so it's a conversation.
Well, I mean, the parallels are just striking, because in those days when Dennis and Brownie Mary were delivering the medicine to people, there was no other medicine for AIDS. There was no other cure. There was nothing. People would just die. You would just die. You would waste away, and you would effing die, man.
Crazy.
And it was crazy. There was no cure. There was no medicine. There was no drug cocktail. And in fact, the research to find those things is being stymied because of discrimination against gay people from people like Ronald and Nancy Reagan, right? And it was terrible. And so the parallels are pretty striking. It's amazing. And in times of crisis, sometimes, there's opportunities, like my brother was saying. So hopefully we'll find more grace within us, all of us, and cannabis will get in the hands of more and more people.
Yeah, and let's do a shout out to all of the people everywhere around the world who are carrying this plant through these difficult times. This plant, which is so important now, we know is one of the first lines of defense for a whole range of health concerns, but also will bring us moments of patience and relief and tranquility as we're going through this issue. There are heroes all over the world now who are risking their lives, who are risking their health to harvest cannabis and bring it. I'm thinking especially of people in places where cannabis hasn't been declared essential, where the people who are carrying the plant right now are highly illegal. And so I just want to take a moment to recognize everybody who continues to carry this healing plant during these troubling times. And I so hope that everybody who relies on cannabis has a way to secure it during these times.
Yeah, because my opinion is, guys, that I believe that the two killers that are going to kill more people than the virus are the economy and mental health. And I believe that without cannabis during these quarantine times, people's mental health would be very, very severely damaged. I believe that cannabis is helping a lot of people mentally with their mental health. For, humans are social creatures, most of them, to be quarantined, to come out of this intact mentally.
Oh yeah, people are freaked out. Okay, if we didn't have cannabis, we'd be using a whole range of other much more dangerous substances. I read this kind of horrifying article out of Russia, where I don't know what the cannabis scene is, but the sales of alcohol vodka have increased massively. There's all these rumors that you can kill the virus by drinking vodka. And so now everybody's at home drinking vodka, and the rates of domestic violence have gone through the roof, right?
Yeah.
So we know that when there's less cannabis available, people consume more alcohol, they consume more opiates, they consume more tranquilizers, they consume a variety of things that are more dangerous and engage in more reckless behavior. So I was very proud of the state of California when it very quickly recognized that cannabis is an essential product, and it's one of the things that I really worry about is what is the impact going to be here in California. We're really lucky. Most Californians can pick up the phone and or get on their computer and place an order, and cannabis be delivered to them quickly, within a day, probably more quickly than you get food right now. But I know that there's a lot of people around the world right now whose supply chains for cannabis are getting severely.
I was very disappointed, Steve, when New York deemed it not essential. I was very disappointed, City, the most affected city in the world at the moment, and with so many people in condensed areas, to deprive people from this amazing medicine, which is crazy to me,
Yeah, it's totally crazy. A medicine in New York where the only people who can legally consume cannabis are people whose doctors have recommended that they use it. And so here we are in a time of crisis, and people are being denied this medicine. So what's going to happen? People who normally would be relying on cannabis to quell their seizures or to manage their chronic pain are instead going to be going to doctors' offices. They're going to be going to pharmacies. In some cases, they may going to be going to hospitals, all of the places where it's so critically important for New York to relieve the burden on. Instead, that burden is going to be aggravated because of all the people whose doctors recommended cannabis as medicine to them are not going to be able to get their medicine. And there's going to be consequences of that. They will suffer, and then there will be added burden on the health system. So even for people who, may not approve of fully legal cannabis, the idea that you would cut off medical cannabis patients from the medicine that they are relying on is just a crazy notion.
Yeah, we saw the same thing in Massachusetts, where the governor did the same thing there. And even here in California, one of our shops, the shop in San Jose, had some issues where San Jose said, well, only medical patients and only delivery, not adults and not in store. And, it's when elected officials make decisions like that, they may not realize the level of suffering they're unleashing on people. And in some cases, maybe they do know that and they just want to unleash it. But unfortunately, in some cases, they're just ignorant and stupid, and they don't quite realize it. But in either case, the people suffer. And it's terrible. It's a terrible situation. So that's why we have to always do our political work and raise holy hell. Like I know people in Massachusetts and New York are raising hell. I've seen it, man. I've seen it on the internet. I've seen the activists doing their work. So we've got San Jose reversed, man. We got San Jose to reverse just last week. So it can be done.
It happened in San Francisco. San Francisco initially wasn't going to declare cannabis essential, and it took about 12 hours for us to push back on that, and then to change their mind. Yes, we do have power, and when we exercise it, we can make change.
So many people. It's a good thing you guys mentioned that, right? Because over here in the East Coast, people aren't as knowledgeable as everybody in the West Coast and understand like the role that we're playing here in New York. So I would call ourselves the heart of New York City cannabis. And we basically are living off of everything, but since it's illegal, we can't sell cannabis, but the culture and all the other things that we do. The reason being is that because of us now, we're just a voice for the cannabis community over here. They have a voice now. They have somebody that can reach out to the Steve DeAngelos, to the Andrew DeAngelos, and the rest of the tribe. And we're just a vessel for all the people and how they feel and what they're going through. Now they have a platform and a voice where the rest of the country and the world can know when these things are happening, these injustices and what they're going through.
It's so important what you guys are doing, and the reason that I have so much respect and admiration for you, because I played that role most of my career. I was there in the belly of the beast on the East Coast, standing up. I know how hard it is, right? I know how scary it can be, but here's what I know. We are millions and millions strong, and there is an army of us that is ready to rise up. And all that it really takes is for people like you, Vlad, and your team to stand up and articulate the mission and lead people forward. And it is happening. It's happening all around the world. I spent 200 days on the road last year. I went to 4 continents. I went to a dozen different emerging cannabis economies. And I will tell you that worldwide, there's not just millions of us. There are hundreds of millions of us. And we are linked by a common value system and our love of this plant. And there's immense power that resides in our community. And we are now awakening that power. We are coming out of the caves and the rooms that we've been hidden in, virtual or otherwise, by prohibition after all of these years. And what I learned as I was coming out in the course of that year, I saw all of these people who had been in these isolated communities because of prohibition, not because of the virus, that we'd all been in for decades. And finally, as prohibition lifted, we were able to come out. And, we were finding out that we may be different races, religions, education, countries, languages, education levels, but we have a common value system. We are really one tribe. And so now we have this incredible potential. I've learned in my 50 years of activism that people who are really committed to change watch for times of crisis. And it's true of our opponents. So you see Donald Trump trying to seize power and use this time to do that. It's also a time that we understand that there is a seed of change inside every crisis. And so it's a time for us as a community to understand that there's this opportunity, and it's time for us to build up a head of steam and come out of this thing pushing hard.
So now I have a question for you guys, right? Because this is my perspective on society as a whole. I want to narrow it down for the cannabis industry for you guys. So I believe that just like in the Bible they have BC, AD, this is going to be like pre-COVID, post-COVID. It's going to be a time in history where there's a drastic change, where there's that much of a difference between the two eras. And I think this is going to be like the border of it, this era right here. So I ask you guys, not just in society, but in the cannabis industry, what do you guys see from pre-COVID to post-COVID as far as like the whole industry and how it's going to change?
Well, let's see. I'll take a crack at that one, bro. You'll probably have a lot more to say too. But I think one of the things that I also am conscious of is not just pre and post COVID, but is going to be pre and post vaccine that works for COVID. Because I think that will move the needle until the vaccine comes along, or until much more widespread testing and perhaps some GPS positioning that we may or may not feel so comfortable with. But measures like that have to be taken more widespread for us to be able to live normally. Until then, we're gonna have to live in an adaptable way. As my brother alluded to earlier, you're gonna have to wait outside before you go into a store. You're going to have to stand in a particular place. There's going to be shields between you and the workers. You're going to have to wear a mask. You might have to have your temperature taken soon before you go into places of work or places of business. And it's just going to take longer to get stuff done. And all those things will reduce risk quite a bit, may not eliminate it entirely. And so how we deal with the fear that is inside everyone of getting a virus that they might not be able to recover from, how all that, how we manage that, and cannabis can play a big role in keeping us calm, cool, and collected a little bit. But we're going to have to open up the economy at some point and do the best we can until there's a vaccine, and be smart and follow science, and play our role as best we can to keep getting cannabis to the people, and stepping up to the plate in other ways to help.
Thank you for those kind words. Makes sense. How about you, Steve? How do you feel this is going to change things things normalized from before to now as far as the industry?
I think we don't have a clue. I mean, really, if we're going to be honest, human beings don't like to sit with uncertainty. Our brains are programmed to figure out the pattern and make a plan and execute on it. I think that we are living in times now where the variables, the independent variables, the stuff that's not really under our control is inherently unknowable. And we don't really know what the world is going to look like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months from now. We don't even know whether once you have this virus, you grow antibodies and you have an immunity or not. If you don't, then we might be looking at something that's going to be far more transformational for the world and our ways of life than we're thinking about right now. Assuming that we return to some kind of semblance of the life that we had before, which I think is kind of an assumption at this stage of the game. I think a few things are clear. Transparency and trust are going to become a lot more important to people. The ways that the goods that people ingest and bring into their bodies and into their homes are going to be looked at much more carefully. So I think that brands that are transparent about the way that they produce and handle their products and the kinds of environments they create for consumers and build trust with that level of transparency are going to do better than brands that don't learn that lesson. So we know that. I think that's true not just in the world of cannabis, but I think that it's true generally in the world that people are going to be a lot more concerned with knowing about where the products come from, how the products are handled, how they are packaged, whether or not they are genuine or whether or not they are counterfeit. Remember that we, just before COVID crisis, had the vape pen crisis, which essentially was a crisis of unregulated cannabis, of untested, of unsafe cannabis. So I think that these questions of safety and trust and transparency are going to become a lot more important. I think that there's going to be a time in the not distant future when people go shopping for a cannabis product, they're going to want to be assured that it's authentic and that it comes from a company that they can trust. And that's something that certainly is going to happen, even with all of the unknowns moving forward. Assuming that there's, that we get a handle on this thing and that it doesn't change our ways of life, much more than it already has.
Well, my opinion, guys, my humble opinion on the cannabis industry subject is similar like you guys. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how society as a whole will look. But as far as the people, what I've realized, my view of things since this started to now, is that this is going to filter out a lot of the people that just came to use and abuse this plant for their 10x, their 20x overnight. I believe that a lot of those people will not come out on the other side because they weren't in it for the right reasons. And since the fear of the unknown is involved, they weren't in it like a lot of people like us for the plant, for the long term. So I believe that a lot of the true warriors and heroes and people that respect and love the plant will be in better positions when this is over than before, because I believe that the people that were just here for just to grab fruit from the tree and leave, I believe that there won't be as many of those people left afterwards, and hopefully make room for people that really care for the plant, people that really want to make a difference in society through the medical benefits, through the recreational benefits. That's what I believe as far as like the internal parts of it. Like you said, the world we can't control, but that's my humble opinion on that.
Just like there's going to be waves of the virus, there's going to be waves of the corporate people coming at cannabis, and I think that you're right. I think that there was a huge influx of people who cared more about money than cannabis into the cannabis industry in the last few years. I think that there's been a bit of a outflow of those folks. We might see a bit of an outflow continuing, but they'll be back. They will be back. And it's important for people who love cannabis to understand that we will be wrestling with these folks. We've been wrestling all through Prohibition. We've been wrestling with them, and in different forms, right? Different kinds of gangsters who have tried to get their hands on cannabis and use it to enrich themselves at the expense of the cannabis community. So that's going to continue to happen, but ultimately they work for us. There is no cannabis industry without cannabis consumers, and an educated cannabis consumer base can direct their dollars to companies that actually take the lessons that this plant teaches seriously and embody those lessons in their business practices. And I think that will happen over time, because we are a connected community, we are a conscious community, we're a committed community, and we know how to talk to each other, and we're learning how to talk to each other better and better every day.
Well, guys, it's Happy Monkey Happy Hour with Vlad. So I know you guys, tell the world about all your encyclopedias of knowledge, but here we also want to know a little bit about more personal experiences on Happy Hour with Vlad. So I want to ask each one of you, starting with you, Andrew, one of your most memorable smoking cannabis experiences. You guys have sons, one of the most memorable ones. Share here with the people. We got to keep them positive and uplifted during these times right now.
Well, I'll share one between me and my brother, because I was really lucky that my first sessions, the person I had my first deep cannabis sessions with was my older brother, Steve. And at that time I was 15 or 16, and Steve was living with his wife at that time in a house out in the suburbs of Maryland, and had a basement. And we would go down there together, and he had this special water pipe. I forget, it was this big
a water pipe or a bong?
No, it was a big 4-banger teardrop hookup. Right?
Yeah, it was more
tube.
like, it had a giant tube, more like a hookah tube. But it was bong-like in its power, let's say. and it was a powerful water pipe that would really get the smoke deep down into the lungs. And when you're 15 or 16 and you're having those first sessions, and your older brother Steve DeAngelo, and you have access to really high potency, wonderful cannabis, it was quite memorable. And I remember we would dream. My first dream in life was to be an athlete, and that dream died when I got hurt in high school. And then I started smoking a lot of weed with my brother, and we started dreaming of new dreams. And almost all of those dreams involved cannabis and legalizing cannabis, and having places like Harborside and Happy Munkey, and communities that we wanted to build together. And those early sessions, we would just dream, man. And my brother would tell me all about the history of cannabis, and school me on what I needed to learn as a youngin, just getting turned on to the plant for the first time. So those are very memorable experiences for me. I have vivid memories of that time. It was right before I left for California to go to college, and it changed me in many good ways.
Thank you for sharing, Andrew. How about you, Steve? I'm interested in hearing yours, because you have so many. Wondering which one you're going to pick from the vault.
Well, I've been thinking about our prisoners a lot lately. So I'm going to go back to 1979, when I was locked up in the Disputana County Jail Farm in Disputana, Virginia.
Virginia.
Yep, and it did have a great big white house on top of a hill with pillars on it, and the sheriff did live in that house. And he did come into the jail every day and round up a bunch of people that he would haul off to his farmer friends' fields. And he did get paid for that labor that was put into his farmers' fields. And the people who were doing the labor did not get anything. But they were out, and they were from the neighborhood, and they were from the community. So they were able to get some little packages of weed. And some of those little packages of weed did make it into the Buchanan County Jail farm. And a very small, tiny little pin joint that probably had a smaller amount of weed in it than any joint that I've ever smoked before or since did find its way into my hands. And after about 5 weeks of no cannabis, which was, one of the longer stretches of my entire life, I managed to go out into the yard and smoke that joint. Yes, I have to confess, I smoked the whole damn thing myself, walking around the fence line. And I'll never forget looking up at the sky, and there was just this beautiful blue sky with huge white puffy clouds blowing by. And I got right back connected into the beauty of Mother Nature and felt myself as a part of the web of life, and just had this moment of communion and joy that totally took me out of the experience of being imprisoned for a little moment. So that was, one of the more memorable cannabis experiences that I've had.
Man, I remember visiting you in that jail. I was 9 years old. I had to go visit him. And you had to be 10 years old. The rule was that, they have a lot of rules, and you had to be 10 years old. And I was only 9 years old. You
found your way in still, Andrew. I gotta see my brother.
My parents were split up, and my parents hated each other, and the jail was way out in the country, and it was like a 6-hour drive to get out there, and it was just me and my parents in the car. And the entire time, man, they were schooling me on, okay, we're gonna lie, and we're gonna say you're 10 years old. Now you're not ever supposed to lie in life, but this time it's okay to lie because we're going to see your brother.
It's for a good cause.
Yeah. And then when we got there, man, the trip out was, it was this southern redneck jail, and they had the big Confederate flag, just like my brother said, everything. And, they make you wait. Of course, you have to wait a long time before you can visit anybody. And there was this sheriff that started lecturing me, man, the little kid, about you don't want to end up like your brother,
scared straight,
in jail, and trying to scare me straight and shit. And I'm sitting there, we just lied to the motherfucker, right? Because I had to get into the thing. And then he's lecturing me about how bad people like my brother are for this cannabis. He called it marijuana. And I knew that was all bullshit because my brother was awesome and I loved him, and we had spent our whole lives together. I knew that he was full of shit, and it was just, I'm glad you got to smoke that joint in there, man, because that was a terrible place. Oh.
It's the parallel and the great analogy that is right now, Steve, that so many people right now are in their self-incarceration during quarantine, and so many people that can never imagine what a prisoner or an inmate goes through. They get in a small taste just by staying in the confines on their own home with all their, but it's still confines. And I can imagine when they go a week, 2-3 weeks without some cannabis, and you do get that, they feel similar to the way that you felt, Steve.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you are in a room or a small space that you're confined in now, and you have been for a while, you're getting a sense of that confinement. Now, take away all the cannabis and put in a really ignorant, stupid, cruel person who has total power over everything. They control your food, they control whether you get a shower or not, and that person hates you and is torturing you. That's a little bit closer to what being incarcerated is really like. So, yeah, I think it's true that that what we are learning is that confinement in itself, even if you're in great conditions of confinement, even if you're someplace that you're comfortable, even if you have cannabis, even if you're with people that you care about, human beings need each other. And confinement and isolation in itself is a really powerful kind of punishment. And so hopefully we all get an appreciation of this, because I think sometimes, people hear that, we've got a cannabis prisoner who's doing 2 or 3 years, and it's like, oh, well, what's the big deal? 2 or 3 year sentence, it's like, this is the big deal, right? This is the big deal. Imagine doing this for 3 years.
Or 2 days. I mean, 2 days in prison is an intense experience, people don't understand. They're getting a taste of confinement, but the cruelty my brother's talking about, and just the jail itself is a torture chamber, basically. And now with a virus running through it, these are very close quarters. I mean, people are living on top of each other. We've crammed 2.3 million people into prisons in this country. It's overflowing, and people are right on top of each other. We've gotten some videos smuggled out of prisons that we've put up on the Last Prisoner Project, social media and stuff. It's just shocking how close the quarters are, and how many prisoners are coughing and are clearly not feeling well. So, go ahead.
No, look, we predicted it. It's now happening, and we've got pictures of guards who are stealing the toilet paper that are supposed to be given to prisoners and hoarding it because they're afraid they can't get toilet paper out on the open market, or they don't want to pay for it. Prisoners are not allowed to have disinfectant because supposedly they will cook the hand sanitizer into alcohol. You have no ability to social distance yourself from people. You have no control over who handles your food or how they handle your food or your water. And the pictures we've been getting are horrifying. Prisoners who don't have any paper towels or disinfectant are being sent into these bathrooms. We got this one picture of these horrible, grody, old little ends of soap bars that were sitting on top of half-decayed sponges by unclean sinks, and this is what's happening, and there's an obligation that a society has. If they're going to take somebody's freedom away from them and take their ability to care for themselves away from them, then you have to care for them, and that's just not happening.
I just wanted to bring to awareness you guys. I'm sure you guys know, but I just recently have found out about it, and we've been trying to do what we can to help also. Rikers Island has become one of the most infected places in the country, and not only it's spread so much from what I hear, and not only hundreds and maybe up to 1,000 inmates have it, but guards, and it's just getting really out of control from what I hear. Do you guys have any knowledge on that? Have you guys heard about this?
It's happening in prisons all over the country, over the world. The Cook County prison in Illinois has 75%. The highest concentration. It's like 75%, right?
75%, yeah.
And we have 100 prisoners in the federal system who are dead of COVID already, and it's just getting worse and worse day by day. We've had some compassionate releases happen, but not nearly enough. And it's, the stories behind this are really important. One of the prisoners that we're most concerned about right now is Michael Thompson, who is serving time in Michigan. Michael's 68 years old. He has a number of underlying health conditions. COVID is rampant in the prison. They have not provided him with adequate medical care. And even though we have provided Michael with funds, they will not allow a private doctor to come into the prison to provide him that care. Michael's sentence, 60 years. He's in the 27th year of that sentence. His crime, his quote unquote crime, selling 3 pounds of weed to an undercover cop. 3 pounds of weed. And so now this ridiculous life sentence, effectively a life sentence for Michael, is on the verge of turning into a death sentence. And this is a case we're really trying to call attention to. But we have a emergency clemency petition on the governor of Michigan's desk, Governor Whitmer, and the prosecutor in the case has actually joined our call for the governor to sign that clemency petition and release Michael. So we're calling on people to go to Governor Whitmer's website, the State of Michigan website, and let her know that we want Michael to come home before his death sentence, his life sentence, turns into a death sentence.
It's so horrible, you know, and that's something I wanted to touch into also. Like, we've made many strides, you know, it's great that they deemed cannabis essential in some places, but what do you say to the person like that young man that's going through that? He is in there going through this horrible torture, and he turns on the news, and corporate people are able to profit off of the same thing that, you know, he's serving his life for. That's kind of like insane.
Well, just imagine, right, how it feels in normal times. You're sitting in a cell, in some cases for the rest of your life, and you turn on the TV and you hear about people building intergenerational wealth, doing exactly the same thing that you're being kept behind bars for. So if that's not enough to drive you crazy in the first place, then you hear that this virus is creeping through the prison that you're locked up in, and it's getting closer and closer and closer to you, and you can't get out, and you can't even defend yourself, right? So yeah, it's kind of the ultimate horror story of cruelty and injustice, which is why, you know, why we've been sounding this alarm and asking folks to plug in with the Last Prisoner Project. It's a huge task that we've set, very ambitious. There's never a time, I think, in history that we've seen the release of 40,000 prisoners who are incarcerated. There's 40,000 cannabis prisoners in the United States, and our promise to them, to every cannabis prisoner, is that we will not stop and we will not rest until they come home. And so it's going to take a mighty army of us to do that. And everybody who has had value brought to their life by this plant, I think, has an opportunity now to do their part and bring them all home. Is something that we can do.
I was so honored to be part of the fundraising, like you said, when we did it at our event. And, you know, like, we always knew these things were happening, but your organization, Last Prisoner Project, has made it much more clear and detailed as far as like how it's happening, where it's happening, and how we can help. That's why I recently, Mary from your team gave us addresses of some of the prisoners there, and the entire Happy Munkey staff each sent a Happy Munkey postcard with a small message to each one. And that felt really good, you know. It felt like, you know, these people make sure that they're not forgotten, that they know there's people out here fighting for them.
I'm so glad you did that.
Yeah, that's great.
You want to talk about what we did at Harborside, bro?
Well, from the day we opened in October of '06, my brother had a vision of doing exactly that. And what we did was we had a program called where people would come in, patients, and if they couldn't afford medicine, they would write letters to prisoners. And in exchange for a letter to a prisoner, we would give that patient a voucher to get a gram of medicine. And it would take, you know, about 20 or 30 minutes, sometimes longer, depending on how passionate that patient was about what they were writing and communicating. But we generated thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of letters to prisoners with that program for well over a decade. And it's one of the things we're most proud of. That established a connection and sort of probably laid some of the seeds for Last Prisoner Project in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it did. I mean, I will never forget standing in the lobby of Harborside, and this happened more than once, released prisoners walking into Harborside who had been receiving letters from us, and literally They were there in tears thanking us because those letters meant so much. So, you know, I hope all of your team, Vlad, knows and let them know that I said it, that those letters are so valuable to our people, to our sisters and brothers who are in those cages, who are facing those times. It can make a huge difference in the way that your day, your week, your month feels. So keep those letters coming. Everybody that this plant has touched can do something to help our prisoners, even if it's just passing on social media from the Last Prisoner Project. If you can't afford a donation, there's plenty of ways that you can volunteer. You can go to the Last Prisoner Project website, and there's a form there. Tell us about yourself and what you do, and we'll find a way that you can plug in, because it's truly going to take all of us. This is a monumental task that we've set for ourselves. But
I need people to know something here on record, because, you know, people assume, you know, especially now, there's so many people that are, you know, very frankly, posers and fakers and just capitalizing off of whatever they can just to preach. But I want people to know that I never forget the first time you came to Happy Munkey Steve and you were about to exit, and you made me get the entire staff. You made me line them all up before you walked them out, and you looked them all in the face and said, I want you guys to look at yourselves in the mirror every day before you come to work. You guys are superheroes. You guys are changing the world. So the reason I say that is I need people to know, and I didn't even know you as much as I do now, that it's not an act. This is who you really are all the time, not just when the camera's on.
Yeah, I love cannabis. I've been called to this plant and the service of this plant, and I do. I think that all of us who have been called, and if you've been called, you know it. And if you've been called, we've all been called by a force that's bigger than any of us. And it's so big that I haven't even really figured out what it is yet, but I know that it's leading us down a path of peace and love. And I know that this world needs that peace and love, and this plant is helping us go down that path. And so everybody who stands up, who takes a risk, who puts their energy into it, who works to educate the world about this plant, I think is on a sacred mission.
Now, I got another interesting question for you guys that I always ask everybody. And what I'm interested to know, I think I remember, I think I don't. I want to answer for both of you guys. How was it? Who's the first person to put you on about Happy Munkey, the brand, the movement? And then how was the first feeling when you finally experienced it?
Well, I learned about you guys from my brother. He experienced it first. So
how was that for you, Andrew?
Well, he basically said, "Look, this is a must-see place. This is a team you have to meet and experience the whole scene, the whole vibe. And next time you go to New York, I'll hook you up." And he did. And I remember my first experience at Happy Munkey. I think everybody does. Because, you know, the vibe attracts the tribe, and that's what you guys do so well. There are a few times in your cannabis journey where you enter a space where you can share cannabis with people and be with them in a space, and you have a feeling, you feel more free than you ever have in your life. I'm lucky enough that that's happened to me on more than one occasion throughout my journey and experience, but it's still a fairly rare thing where you feel totally free, man. And that first experience at Happy Munkey evoked that feeling within me, and it's a special feeling to be able to create in people, and people will remember for a long time, and not only remember, but as my brother alluded to, will carry the message on and will create their own little Happy Monkeys, and their children and grandchildren will create Harborsides and Happy Monkeys and Last Prisoner Projects, and the struggle will always be with us. We will always have more freedom to attain for our people, and more access to create, and more things to learn about cannabis. So that's what Happy Munkey, that first experience for me, was just that feeling of total cannabis freedom, that feeling
you get your heart soars and you're like, oh, at last somebody made it and I'm here. Yeah.
Thank you for those kind words, Andrew. How about yourself, Steve?
Well, if I remember correctly, I learned about Happy Munkey from you.
Yes. Just wanted to make sure, just quizzing you. We met in Vegas, at an ArcView conference.
That's right. So I was lucky enough to get a personal invitation, although I had seen somebody with a Happy Munkey lapel pin earlier, and then I recognized it, but I hadn't known exactly what the meaning of it was. How was it for me? Well, you know, look, I knew that we were brothers when we met. I knew that within the first 5 or 10 minutes of us just connecting with each other. And so I was super excited to actually come out to New York and see the spot. And when I walked in, it was like, I don't know, like a general visiting an outpost of the Army that was farther and deeper into enemy lines than we ever thought that the Army was going to be able to get. And right here's this magnificent outpost of freedom right in the heart, right in the belly of the beast, right? There's no part of the country that's been as resistant to real cannabis reform than that northeastern belt. The elite in there has just been desperately opposed to it. And walking in and seeing something that felt like the best of the cannabis experiences I've ever had in my life, where there was music, where there was community, where there was food, and most of all, the thing that I think I love most about our community, or one of the things, this sense of radical inclusion, right? I'll never forget how you walked me around and I took a look at the people who were in the Monkey, and it was just like a slice of our community. It's everybody, right? There were people from all walks of life, all different races, people talking different languages, people who, probably just got off of a delivery job right next to people who probably just walked out of a Wall Street office, and all part of a community, part of a vibe, sharing and communing with each other. And it was just it was like a flower in the middle of a desert. It's like an oasis, right? It's like, those, I don't know whether it's contemporaneous or not, but when I was growing up, there would be these cartoons that would show somebody dying of thirst in the middle of the desert, and they would just like be barely going all the way through the desert, and dying of thirst, and like they would just barely get there, and then they would see an oasis, and they would hurry up and they would get to the oasis, and then the oasis would evaporate. Well, I felt like that, except the oasis didn't evaporate. It was real. It was there.
Thank you for those kind words from both of you guys, and I want you to know, because we're just some locals that grew up here, born and raised in New York and Harlem. So when people like you guys that are icons and legends felt like that was a big indicator for us of what difference we're making in the world by doing what we're doing. Because sometimes just see things where you're from and get real localized, and when somebody like you guys comes along that's been so impactful, it keeps us inspired, and it keeps us knowing that it's possible and we're on the right direction, and we're not alone in this fight. And there's, like you said, so many other people that band with you and are gonna stick with you and gonna keep on pushing this movement, and that appreciate and understand what we're doing and how we're impacting society.
Yeah, man. I mean, it always starts with the community immediately around us, that local community, and then it kind of spreads like the layer of an onion outward. And Happy Munkey's already beginning to see some of that spread outward. You're growing all the time. I see your audience growing all the time, and I see a lot of change on the horizon there in New York in the next couple of years. That's very exciting for Happy Munkey. So, keep pushing on.
No, definitely. You guys have been a very, very big inspiration to us. And like you said, you've also, aside from all the due diligence we did, educated us on all the different things that are going on in society, in the cannabis industry, and a lot of the troubles and struggles that you guys went through to make it to where you are. So like I said, it helps you see that you're not alone, that you said there's a bunch of soldiers fighting on all different fronts. And that definitely helps you, your morale, and helps you stay the course.
I came away from my tour last year so energized. I'm still just blazing high off of that. Yes, you know, there's hundreds of millions of us who have been touched in this way, and what makes Happy Munkey special is something that can blossom all around the world. What you've done is you've sat with the plant, you've really gotten deep in that connection, you've learned the lessons that she has to teach, and you've embodied those lessons in what you're doing. Any of us, anybody around the world can do what you've done, can do what I've done, can do what Andrew's done, can do what's been done in California, it can be done in New York. It will happen all over the world because the plant speaks to us directly to our hearts. And all we need to do is just keep that faith, commune with the plant, learn those lessons, take them seriously. It's not just about getting high. We're being sent really important messages that we need to act on. And if we do that, what we create in one place will blossom all over the world. I see it happening. And just as my example has helped guide the way for you, your example is now guiding the way for many other people. And it's like this little ball of energy, right, that comes into our hands, and we each take it for a little while, and we hold it and we shine it up, and it starts glowing and it starts humming and it starts glowing and humming. And then we go, here, you take this for a little while, you polish it up, you make it hum. And when it's really buzzing, then you hand it off. And that's what we're doing as a people all around the world now.
1,000% definitely. And I, you know, was also honored. One of the most memorable nights we've had, and I can never forget. And you know, now, like you said, we take these things for granted, but now you look back and like, it's like, wow, what a day. When you decided to celebrate your born day with us, and you bring, you know, we bring all our amazing community together, and you bring a lot of your friends. I think that was an epic day. And I know you celebrated many birthdays. I want to know how you felt about it.
It was, I mean, that was, let's put it this way. There may have been a better birthday that I had somewhere along the line, but the memory is not as clear as that one. It was a beautiful day, surrounded by friends that had, you know, there were lifelong friends. I had people who came all the way from Canada to be there, and people that I just met who I immediately felt a bond with. I felt so honored and so just with my community and with the people who love the plant in the way that I do. And it was a really touching and wonderful night. I'll always carry that. It's like the Maya Angelou thing, right? I will always remember how I felt on that night and the love that was in that room and that I was bathing in.
Definitely. Thank you. You know, like, you know, that day, you know, really solidified that, made me realize like the bond that we created when I know, you know, you could have chose to celebrate your birthday anywhere in the world and you chose to celebrate it there. It showed me that it held a special place in your heart. I want to tell you, Andrew, I keep an eye on you too, Andrew. Congrats on the Forbes article, because I know Steve always gets all the accolades. I saw that and I want to congratulate you on it. How was that?
Well, it was great to see that profile in Forbes of me. That's the first time a publication of that stature has labeled me a pioneer, so that felt wonderful. It always feels good to get a little recognition and validation. That's not why we do the work. The work is, you know, it's about the culture, as you guys would say. But it's always nice when somebody profiles you and has nice things to say, and more importantly, where you get a chance to reach a larger audience with the cannabis message.
Exactly.
And you know, that one was fun because I got to tell some stories of me and Steve growing up, and how cannabis came into my life, and sort of the story of the activism, and talked a little bit about food and even poetry. So it was fun. And thank you for saying that, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's my point. Like you said, you know, I know that you didn't do that for that, and we don't do it for that, but it's like you said, you know, it's every time something like that does happen, it normalizes it more in society. And it's good to have somebody like you on there speaking for the tribe that really cares about the plant, that really, you know, has the plant's best interest at heart, talking for all of us on this kind of big platform, you know, makes me feel good, because I know that this is a person that really shares our values and everything we believe in the plant, you know? So that's why I feel like I had to mention it, because it's important for the people that are not part of the tribe. They see something like that, and it's possible for them to become part of the tribe, because somebody like you that is, you know, a real person of the culture speaking to them.
Yeah, man, every chance we have, whether it's the Happy Munkey platform or the Forbes platform, to deliver the message is we each carry that opportunity within us. And I'm so proud that I had that chance with Forbes, and I'm glad to hear you say that you felt like my message was a good one for everybody to be inspired by. That's certainly what I was trying to do with that.
Now, guys, I think you both have answered it before, but a lot of time has passed, and I feel like we've evolved as a brand and as a movement. So I got to ask you again, the $1 million question I always ask everybody. If you had to describe Happy Munkey, the brand, the movement, the place, everything you guys know about it in one word, what would it be and why?
My word would be powerhouse.
Powerhouse. And why powerhouse?
Powerhouse because you have created a place that the community can come together, that continues to come together, that unleashes the energy that's latent in all of us, right? And so you are a house, you are a place, you are a community. You are unleashing our power. So you're a powerhouse in that sense. You're a powerhouse in the energy, right? You come into the Monkey and people are alive. Their eyes are sparkling. They are smiling. They are engaged. Or maybe they might not be so smiling because something else might be going on, but they're real, okay? And so that energy is palpable. Your tenacity and endurance and audacity, right? You've been very audacious. You've had some bumps in the road that you've powered through, and you're still here and you're still going. And that head of steam is just getting stronger and stronger. So you guys are the cannabis powerhouse of the East Coast, not just of New York City.
Thank you so much for those kind words. How about you, Andrew? What do you got for me?
I got resilience is the word I like, you know, because it's not easy. And I know there's been times where you guys got some setbacks and different things happened to you and the community, and you had to rise from the ashes strong again and reinvent yourselves and figure out new ways to communicate with the community and you know, manage crisis one after another. It's hard to be a powerhouse. It's really hard. You're pioneering. You're carrying that torch, and a lot of people carry it for a very short while. They take a few hits and it's too much for them. But not Happy Munkey. The resiliency and the standing back up again and never giving up and always trusting in the vibe and the tribe and the community and never allowing the commerce part of cannabis to overtake your vision and cloud your thinking. So, you know, resiliency. I've learned, me and my brother, you know, you get to middle age like we're at, it's a really important thing to cultivate within us. It's a very important skill to have, because if you can just keep standing and weathering the storm, you learn so much and you get better at what you do, and then you win more. And so that resiliency will lead to success, you know, eventually.
Thank you both for those kind words. Like I said before, you know, I'm honored and really happy to get to see you guys. You know, we usually get to see each other when you guys come to New York or at conferences. For right now, we know that can't happen in a while. So for you guys to take out the time and really kick it with me here and get to, you know, feel this virtual energy, you know, prefer it in person, but this is so much better than a blank. I want to thank you guys, you know, definitely thank you for inspiring us and motivating us. Thank you for what you do for all the Last Prisoner Project, what you guys done for the industry, for the community. And like I said, you know, it was just important for me, even during these times, to, you know, give you flowers while you're here and let the people know over here in the East Coast that, you know, there's people out there that really care and believe in what we believe in, and they're fighting on their front also.
Great to be connected, even virtually, man. It's so wonderful to see your smile and to hear your voice and to absorb a little bit more vibe. And look, we're all learning how to do this, and we'll keep on learning it. And thank you for inviting us, and thank you for just being you, man.
Really fun to have this happy hour with you, Vlad. Right on, bro.
So you guys tell them, I guess, a little bit about what to expect for 2020 from Last Prisoner Project, Harborside, and anything else you guys have going on, and where they can find you. You know, I know you guys are pretty known everywhere, but over here in the East Coast and in our community, they're not as informed. So I need them to get in tune to all the amazing things that you guys are doing.
Last Prisoner Project, you can follow us at Last Prisoner, well, you can come to our website, lastprisonerproject.org. You can follow us. It's at Last Prisoner Project. Is that right, Jocko? Yeah, at Last Prisoner Project. You can follow us and get in on all of our social there. What is the Last Prisoner Project going to do this year? We hope that we will be able to get a few programs expanded and fully funded this year. We have a clemency initiative that we want to get funded. We have a reentry program that we are beginning to deploy, a reentry retraining program. And what we'd like to see is a lot more dispensaries participating in our Roll It Up for Freedom program. And this is a program that's really simple. We just ask cannabis consumers to donate the change from their cannabis purchase to the Last Prisoner Project. And if we all do that, it adds up to enough money that we think we can actually, you know, really get this job done. So if you're in a legal state, if you if you engage with a dispensary and that's where you get your cannabis, you might want to suggest to them that if they're not participating in the Roll It Up for Freedom program, they reach out to us and do that. That'd be hugely helpful. So that's Last Prisoner Project. You want to talk about Harborside, bro?
Sure. People can learn about Harborside at our website, of course, shopharborside.com. Harborside's basically trying to survive the virus and get cannabis to the people right now. I'm really proud of the team. They're doing a great job of that. And luckily, we reversed the decision in San Jose, so that shop down there is able to get cannabis to the people. And, you know, some of our plans we've had to pivot with. Harborside was going to open a really cool tasting room in Oakland, and it's really hard to do that with a respiratory virus going around. So that's going to have to go on hold for a little while. But we'll be able to do other things like curbside pickup and drive-through experiences. We have a drive-through at our Desert Hot Springs shop now. People can drive through and get their cannabis, and of course delivery is in almost all of our locations. You can get delivery. So that's our number one job right now: safely get cannabis to the people and try to use our platform at Harborside to raise money and do good. Right now we have a really exciting program where we're giving $5 of every eighth of Harborside Reserve Farm flower we sell to a COVID-19 first responders here in Oakland. So that's another way that Harborside's giving back, and people can follow Harborside on social. Me and Steve also all over social, and Steve and I both have our own website, Steve DeAngelo or AndrewDeAngelo.com, and people can feel free to drop us an email there too.
Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. I hope you guys soaked in some positive energy and some great information. I know we're dealing with some tough times right now, ladies and gentlemen, but remember, you're too blessed to be stressed. Things will get greater later. For now, checking out Happy Monkey Happy Hour with Vlad. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Angelo. Till next time, peace, love, and happiness.
Peace, bro.
Peace, love, stay strong, stay free.